Welcome, everyone, to our latest episode on the Awaken Voices Journey of a Brave Community podcast. Today, with me, we have Thomas Mundia, one of our valued faculty members at Awaken. And yeah, we are going to talk about what is reality. And so, before we dive into our topic, Thomas, maybe you want to say a few words about yourself and your work.
Very much. Very happy to be here and to speak to the community. I spend a lot of time listening to people. I've, the recent years, really been investing time to help people listen to lower levels that are important, levels of identity, levels of values, worldviews, basically things that have probably influenced the behaviors they see. So I'm a professional certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. And I spend a lot of time mostly with executives. For a long time, I've spent time coaching people in the workspace with a lot of executives in different parts of the world. I recently have started doing a lot more work with relationships. I'm very interested in relationship systems intelligence. So I'm working with families, a lot of family businesses, and just helping them to listen to the voices within the system. So very happy to be here, Evelyn.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems like you have a very diverse background, being in like different settings as workplace, but like also now moving into more the private space with family relationships. So yeah, I'm wondering like what makes you especially interested in the topic of reality?
I think it's experience. First, for myself personally, I think for a long time I have never had time to really introspect to such levels. So I have had on my own personal journey to discover my own reality. And that was the transformational point in my life. And ever since I encountered the power of looking at your reality and what it can do to you, I've just wanted to share it with as many people as possible and to help them benefit just the same way I have benefited. I struggled with many fears. As personally, I had a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-esteem issues, but I never really pinpointed. I could not really tell where that was coming from. And I had a coach walk with me, and that was the game changer. And that is what really transformed me. And ever since I've fallen in love with just wanting to coach people at a much deeper level. And I'm already seeing the influence. And the other thing is I'm seeing my clients and I'm seeing the benefit it offers them when they really look at their reality and start relating and engaging differently with their reality lenses.
Yeah, I can really tell also from my own experience that coaching also supported my own journey in that sense massively. Just understanding that what I perceive or what I claim as my reality not necessarily is what is actually happening, or at least that there are many different perspectives on what reality is that then construct a whole different story. And so, yeah, how, or maybe let's even go one step ahead. Like, what is reality actually, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a nice one. I look at it as the sum total of the sensory data that you've collected, that has been formed by experiences that eventually becomes the script that defines your default behavior, default thinking pattern. So reality is it's a frame of mind. It's a reference point. And one thing I just want to point out is, remember, it's a limited version of a bigger reality. So it's that which is particular to an individual. So we share different realities because we are all then exposed to different things, and that eventually shapes that limited view we have of what we consider is real and what is true to us. And again, it's based on what has been the limited experience we have faced in life.
And how come that we even construct this own reality out of the bigger reality? Like, what makes us, do that as humans?
And that's very fascinating, Evelyn, if you ask me. I mean, we're very interesting human beings, as you said. So a lot of this is very much protective. We remember our biggest drive is self-preservation. So we create a reality because we are bombarded with so much sensory data on a day-to-day basis. So the brain cannot handle all that comes. So eventually what then happens is that then we filter and create something that becomes our safe or comfort zone, where we then feel safe within that space. And we need it because that's how we remain sane, because there's just so many other things happening around us. So it's both biological, physiological, it's psychological, and it's a coping mechanism that human beings have that enables them then to navigate through life with something that they're holding on to. So it's basically things that we need to hold on to so that we can just move forward. And we all need it, and we all have it in one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also hearing you talk makes me have this image of you're walking through the world and there are a lot of information coming in, and you're just trying to also understand and filter what is most important for you to gain as an information, because there is some need in focusing and in prioritizing. So by doing that, our perception is really focusing on very specific things that, as you say, help us to create some sense of understanding, of stability, of safety also.
Yeah.
So how come then, or what makes us want to challenge that reality if this is so helpful for us to create this kind of safe container for ourselves?
I love your questions. It's because it's what many people, I must say, fear. There's a lot of fear to challenge that reality. I just want to make that disclaimer. Remember, it's a safety zone. We create it because it gives us meaning. It enables us then to kind of navigate through life with just some sense of comfort. So, I mean, the reason why we have to keep relooking at our realities is because our life is not static. So we are constantly changing. And many times you will find, because of the nature of our lives having to change, you might find that when we interrogate our reality, we might find that the reality is no longer serving the current position that we are in and what our current context or environment requires of us. So, and also when we also realize that sometimes, let's look at ourselves here, Evelyn, where we're two individuals with two different realities. And so sometimes our realities are challenged in contexts where we meet other people. So in relation to other people, you constantly have to keep reevaluating your realities. So one of the biggest needs for us to keep looking at our realities is because those realities might be challenged by a change in a relationship. I was once a single person. I now marry someone. This is a meeting of two realities, and there has to be somewhere where the two realities will need to form some form of understanding. It's almost like two realities talking to each other and how they need to shape their way forward. Today you are not working, you move to another place and you're working in another environment, and you find that the reality you have is being challenged by the different places you are. So I think it is safe to assume or appreciate the fact that our realities, as much as they provide us the safety, are in need of evaluation or auditing or assessment. and especially in looking at how relevant they are in terms of serving us and being able to help us achieve what we want to achieve in life, whether it's individuals or in relation to other people.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Yeah. I can
I love
see
this
how
work,
also
Evelyn. I love.
I agree. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
amazing to also be open to different realities, because
yeah.
I like an image that came up for me that probably many people can relate to is like, can be at the workplace or in a private setting, but you're in a conflict with another person because you think they did something to you and you have your own story or your own mind's narrative telling you that their behavior or their words meant something very specific. So you attach an interpretation to a behavior that you observed, and the other person is just like trying to explain to you that this was not their real intention, but you're getting so caught up in your own reality of, no, this is what happened, this is what you did to me, this is yeah, what my reaction to this is now. And so yeah, I'm wondering, like, in these kind of situations when you're really like in a conflict with another person, how can you approach the situation maybe in a more beneficial way in terms of like making sure that the connection is still maintained?
Yeah. Oh, and that's very valid. As a married man, I have many instances where I could misread or misjudge my wife's intentions. And it's because I'm also projecting my reality to her. It's very interesting to remember that reality comprises of prejudices, biases, assumptions, a lot of, at times also limiting beliefs, because remember, these are things that either due to experience we have formed. So some healthy practices are the following. One, remember that you could be wrong. I love that phrase because what then it does is that you then enter every relationship open to the reality that you might actually have misread and misjudged the other person. It's very important for us to build authentic relationships, for these relationships to be founded on openness, that I could be wrong in my judgment of an individual, and let me give them the benefit of doubt. Secondly, it's helpful to ask questions out of curiosity so that you can understand what could have informed the other person's decision or behavior, and not to assume that you think you know what was the reason. So, a second thing that might be always helpful is to ask, I noticed you did this, and I'm just curious, what could have informed your decision to take this? I don't want to assume uh, that you meant it this way, but I could be wrong in my judgment. But I'm happy to hear what could have informed you, and you could be very surprised that actually that person's reality might be making a lot of sense given the context that you are in. And then I think another thing that helps in creating healthy relationships is to remember that even when you're wrong and your realities clash with someone, it's good to appreciate the fact that to admit, you know what, I'm sorry. Just using very simple language like, I'm sorry, and extending grace to the other person, and saying, you know what, I might have stepped your feet or stepped on your toes wrongly in my projection of my reality. Um, and so it's a very vulnerable place to be, if you ask me. It's very vulnerable because you're loosely holding your reality to another, and you're being open enough to the fact that that person is going to judge that reality, but you're also being vulnerable enough to open up an area of intimacy in your life that is then prone to either somebody judging you wrongly or whatever. But I think those things that I've said probably will be a beginning point of how to bring two realities to begin to relate to each other.
Yeah, I really value those insights that you are sharing, especially because I'm also sometimes challenged by talking to people that claim to know the truth. Or I mean, I did that also in my past, so I don't want to like exclude myself from this group. But that claimed a reality that was basically proven by science. But also, as we all know, science is in development, so could be that a couple of years later, some new paradigm or some new theory gets out that is completely opposite to what we thought would be the truth until that point. So sometimes these kind of scenarios make it really hard to be in conversation with a person if there's like not the preliminary that what you said before, we could be wrong. I could be wrong. I could be proven differently, and like staying in the curiosity. So how would you engage in a dialogue with a person that really seems to be stuck in their reality, or maybe is claiming the truth to know the one truth?
That's an interesting one. And a hard one, because I face it every time. I mean, coming from this lovely continent of Africa, I face so many prejudices when you meet with people from other parts of the world. I mean, it's a constant thing. People will project their superiority at times, unconsciously or consciously, in statements that they're making. I think one of the things that I would give as a tip is, one, it's very important for the one who's being projected the reality by another to first remember, to remain in a position of power. And being in a position of power, personal power, means that you don't need to apologize for the state that you are in. Because one of the dangers you have is when somebody else is projecting the reality to you, their reality on you. It's very easy many times to already give in your position. And so it's always important to remember that is this person's reality. Give the person the benefit of doubt, and assume that it's probably, maybe they might not be much exposed to other things, and then just use questions. I think it helps a lot. I've learned from experience that instead of challenging a reality, is just be curious to ask. And it's very leading questions, and it could be things about, you've projected, I hear you say this, could there be an alternative way of also looking at it? I noticed you mentioned this. Are you probably aware that there's also this information, and how does that information also fit in what you've just said? So you're trying as much as possible not to put the person on the defense who's projecting their reality. But the more you remain comfortable and confident in your reality without having to apologize, and the more you just become curious and honor the space, because it's honoring the space that you have with this person and honoring this individual, that, you know what, they're saying this because that's all that they have for right now. And therefore, I don't want to complicate their life further and put them on the defense, but just allow them the space with my questionings to eventually come around to see that there possibly could be a different opinion. I've noticed that whenever you go direct and challenge, you create more animosity, you create more tension, and energy is then very toxic and different. But when you remain confident and you seem like you're not being frazzled by the projection of another's reality, you're already giving that person food for thought. That, it's interesting. I'm here projecting, but this person doesn't seem to be frazzled. And then it's good to point out what you're hearing, so the person just doesn't walk away noticing that you're comfortable, but also let the person, through your questions, also be aware that you notice that there could be some flaws in what they projected as a reality, but in nice ways, in proper ways, in respectful ways, with the questions that you ask.
I love that. I especially love like how curiosity as a value, and like also just like finding this inner peace and groundedness within yourself allows you actually to move into curiosity and to, instead of going into a protective pattern of like, I need to defend myself now, being able to stay open. So I imagine, because you also mentioned like people projecting a lot on you based on your origin of Africa. And I'm curious, probably also you had the experience in different coaching conversations that you were probably like challenged by the reality that your coaches brought to the conversation. So how do you stay open to receiving so many different realities? Like,
and let me ask you: is this where my clients are projecting their realities to me, or is it when I am coaching them, I realize that they actually are holding certain realities?
I think I would like to go down the second path. So
The
I've
second part.
noticed, for example, like if you coach clients from various religious backgrounds or various cultural backgrounds, there are a lot of different beliefs or also
Yeah.
realities that
Yeah.
inform their decisions. And sometimes I find it easier the more different from my own reality their reality is, because then I can easily tap into the curiosity, because I'm like, wow, that's such a different view of seeing the world. And then sometimes I realize the closer their reality gets to my own reality, it's sometimes harder if there's then like, it's harder to stay out of the advising if I see that they have an unhelpful belief, for example, and instead stay curious. Like if it's something that's really close to my heart or something that I have learned for myself that was really helpful. So the more similar I perceive my client to be with my own reality, the harder it gets for me to stay open to curiosity and moving in their reality. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because I can relate to you. I mean, it's very, as a coach, it's very difficult many times when you're trying to be present and you're listening to a reality that totally maybe conflicts your own in such huge measures. And this is where it becomes very difficult to sit in that presence and to honor my client by just being curious and asking and appreciating the fact that it's just their reality, and I just need to honor that space. The other challenge you brought is also interesting when you're coaching someone and they have a reality that is yours. Again, it's a different way, it's a different challenge to your presence, because now you have another bigger problem, and that is not a bigger problem, but another equally challenging situation, and that is to not validate because it's very tempting to give validity and credence to the other person's reality because you agree with it. It could be one of religion, it could be one of gender, it could be just any of those beliefs. But I think what I've found very interesting is that whenever my clients come in my coaching conversations, a lot of people don't listen to themselves. They're really not aware that there's a script that is running, and it is so much in the words that they use. But so my job is mostly to just play back those key words that I hear. So I've had times where you hear a person says, I'm not a good public speaker. I love this. It's one of my favorite. And so you realize, and when you play it back to the client and ask them, you said that you're not a good public speaker. And the person might stop and say, I said that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And where is that coming from? And it takes them to another space that probably is more important than what they were talking about earlier, because it's probably is going to uncover and reveal limiting beliefs that probably have come from certain experiences that they've never interrogated or really had a chance to look at. So I think what makes coaching really exciting at the reality level is to listen to key things that you hear the client speaking about. I am, you hear them saying, I can't do, I am not a good mother. Uh, I don't think I am good for my spouse. I don't think I can be a CEO. I don't think I'm not a good friend. I'm a mean person. All these things, they say them and they move on. It's interesting. People just move on. And I think the difficult part for the coach is to be able to pick that, because there lies the signs of whatever forms the reality of this amazing human being that is in front of you in a coaching conversation.
Mm. And so, listening to you, I'm curious, because people, I mean, share in the coaching session like a lot of beliefs, and like some beliefs might be helpful, some beliefs might be limiting. How do you decide which belief you go deeper with?
Oh, that's always a difficult one. One of the things I learned in my coaching practice is trust your instinct, trust that inner voice. I mean, as a coach, there are times you can hear something and it's telling you, follow that one. In many times, more than often, I've not been wrong in sensing that this will be an interesting one to do. At times, that decision of whether this would be worth pursuing would also be co-created and mutually agreed with the client. So you could play out a particular belief, and you could easily say, I hear this and I hear that. And sometimes many people are taken aback to even hear them replayed, and just ask them, which of these ones would you like to explore a little bit more and find out what it's telling us? So the instances where it's a trust of your gut feeling, it's a trust of that voice of yours that tells you there could be something here. But a lot of it is also being defined by what the client stated at the beginning as their desired outcome from the session. So that might, if I get a sense that this belief might have something to do with the goal that they set out, I will then probably bring it out and just ask, I hear this. I don't know if you notice it, and maybe what is it telling us? Do you mind if we could just unpack it? And there will be some clients who would say, no, I don't want. And you honor that space. And there will be some who say, you know what, it's interesting. I didn't think that. And since you picked that, probably it will be worth looking at how it links to my goal. So again, it's always an interesting one.
Yeah, and I'm also like thinking that usually people entering into a coaching conversation kind of have this underlying feeling of feeling stuck in some part of their life, or feeling that something has to be a certain way, or and throughout the coaching conversation, through the engaging with these kind of beliefs that make them perceive a certain reality that makes them feel stuck, we're allowing through the questioning to just like open that space and to create choice so that they can see themselves and see what they believe, and see also how they're blocking themselves by not allowing to choose differently.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I love that.
How
I
do
love
you
that.
like when you're like repeating these beliefs back to your client, like what allows you then to go deeper with this, like to go to a deeper level with the conversation?
So many times I would look for what I look at as probably shifts in body language, shifts in energy. I mean, you can tell that when a person starts digging a little bit deeper into a reality lens in the form of a belief, if you notice them changing, whether it's their tone, and you notice them, they're lighting up, it's just things that you start saying that they go things like, wow, you know what? I have never really thought of this. And so that is normally sometimes the cue that tells you, you know what? This could be, we could be on to something. And so even when they say that, I'll normally ask the client, so what do you want us to do about it? So what else? And it helps then, because you also don't want to just take it as your initiative to go deeper, but you're just asking, with where we've reached so far, um, you're almost seeking permission. Could be there be something else down the well? I like using the analogy of the well because it's very much my continent kind of analogy. When we are fetching water, we fetch water from wells, and so sometimes you have no idea how far the water level is. And so sometimes you might throw in the bucket and you're not getting anything, but you might realize maybe I need to extend the rope a little bit so that I can reach to the level. It might be a bit deeper, and maybe there is where the water lies. It's the same analogy. I'd want to ask the client, do you want us to extend the rope a little bit? And could there be something there? So it's interesting. I love when I notice energy shifts, the voice is changing. There are aha moments for someone. And again, I will seek the permission in terms of how much further do you want us to go? How just to honor the client.
Hmm.
And again, I guess
Yeah,
yeah, I guess the thing I keep remembering is that at the end of the day, it's very client centered. So the question I'm asking is that, is this unpacking of this belief serving the client to move forward? Is the unpacking of the belief helping this client get value from this session in regard to what was their intended um, this or desired outcome? So that is what tells me to what extent I can go on with the belief. If it is serving those two purposes, then I'm happy to proceed.
Mhm. Yeah, I think two aspects that you mention resonate especially with me. One being that you said that you're using like your observation skills in terms of like not only listening to what they say, but also seeing if this is congruent with their energy, with their body gesture. So like not making assumptions based on the words that you hear, because I also had coaching conversations where my client would be like, oh, this was amazing, I feel way better now, but her body and my me
Mhm.
sensing into her and into the space just gave me the intuition of like just asking one more time, or like slightly changing the question so that she could really like, instead of being in her mind and answering the questions from her mind, sense into her body and notice if this was really true for her in that moment. And only through this mirroring back of my observation of her body posture and of her energy, she was able then to see that we hadn't really touched the point that she was looking for, but we went into a like way deeper journey of exploring her feelings and her beliefs around that certain topic. So I find it really important to, yeah, not only stick to the words that we hear and make our interpretations based on that, but to really also, yeah, be present and not be afraid of sharing our observations in a very gentle and kind way, and then seeing like, not with the expectation that you necessarily have to go there as you shared as
Yeah,
well, but
yeah,
more with the curiosity of like, would you want to explore this further? Would you like to go deeper with this?
yeah,
So
yeah,
also like allowing more spaciousness and more choice for the client to see themselves and to explore their current reality in the way that they want to.
yeah, yeah. Mm, really lovely.
Hmm.
It's good when you speak to another coach because I mean, even as you speak, I can relate. And it just really reminds us of just the beauty of our profession, and just a lot of people get a lot of value when they have a chance in a safe environment to engage with their realities, probably issues that they've never had a chance to look at before. But I think even more importantly, when there are shifts at levels that then provide them behavior change that is more sustainable. So I think that's what we're looking at is there are certain shifts, and that's why I love the reality levels, because the shifts at that level are so profound, that you can even just see it in the body of the client. You can see it in their face, that they probably, some of them need even a moment of silence. I've been in instances where a person just, it's just like he's just had something dropped on him, and he's just allowing him and sitting with the client for a moment and just asking them, what would you need at this point? And you notice someone just say, I just want to be silent with this for a moment, because it's a space and a place you've taken them that probably they've never had a chance to be in. And it is in those moments I've noticed that the enthusiasm, the passion, the energy to move forward in whatever brought them, that is where the click happens in those particular conversations.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm really noticing that from my own experience also in the sessions, that these kind of reality shifts also have like a longer lasting impact somehow, because it's something so profound that can change when you're open up to being also comfortable with not knowing, and being comfortable with like opening up to different perspectives, and like it doesn't really require some action steps, afterwards to be like, oh, I need to do this and that now. But sometimes just like this opening up to a new reality can already have like such a big ripple effect on how you engage with others, how you engage with yourself, how you see the world, how you see life. One question that just came up while I was talking, because I'm really curious about the unknown, and like being comfortable as a coach to, not know. And when I started coaching, it was, I think, like the scariest thing of all, to not be like, to really stay present and listen to the person until they finished, and even allow silence for them to see if there's something else coming up, and not in my mind get caught up in already finding the perfect, powerful question to ask them right after. And so I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to that, like what makes you comfortable with being in the unknown.
I like that. Being in the unknown. I think over the years, because in my initial stages as a coach, this was just like you, just one of the most scariest thing. Because as a rookie coach, you're constantly asking, what is the next question I need to be asking? And then when they silence, you almost are tempted to feel like you need to put something to fill in that gap. But I'll tell you what makes me very comfortable in the unknown is to remember what my role is. And that is, mine is to hold that space, and that I am in charge of the process. That is very important for me to always remember. I have to keep telling myself. So I spend some time in centering myself before my sessions, and to remember that I have an amazing opportunity with a human being with so much potential in a short while. My job is just to hold that space. We have analogies of nets, fishing nets in my continent. So as a coach, I look at myself as just holding that net at that particular moment for that client, and just being comfortable that that might probably be just all that the client needs. I've been in instances where a client comes in, and normally what you call they have had a very traumatic experience with people who have probably spoken ill of them within a team. And in the first session, the they break down in tears, and they have a moment where they're just silent, sitting with a big emotions. And normally this is normally difficult, especially when you're dealing with very big emotions of guilt or shame, or people who've disrespected you. And so what I normally would do is that I remember in one particular client, that is what happened. And I felt very comfortable just being there for them, because I realized it's not so much about what I want to do with the unknown. It is so much a question of how is this benefiting my client? Is the client finding benefit in this space they are in right now? And that's the thing I use as the criteria. So two important things that I use. One is to be remember my role, and second, to remember the question of, is this serving my client? Is this what they need right now? And in my questions, I'll be able to ascertain whether that is what it is. The case I gave you earlier, they spent time in silence. They had a lot of moments to pour out. I didn't say even anything. We didn't have even any specific goal for the session. They left, and I wasn't sure whether the client will come back again. They called me back 3 days later, telling me that was the best thing that happened to them, and that they wanted to come back again and re-engage. And for me, I felt initially very uncomfortable. You don't know what to do with this kind of emotions. You don't know how do you hold a safe space for a client? And in this case, it was a lady. And I had all these things and the limitations, and I just kept remembering, just stay still, hold the space, mirror the energy that you're seeing from them. If it's a deep emotion, express it the same way. Give them that assurance in your tone that you're at the same level as them. And then if they want silence, just be silent with them and mirror the same for them. For them, many of them in the unknown, it's just enough to know that there's somebody in that space with them, and who's not judging them, and who's just simply um, riding the wave with them for that particular moment. That's how I handle the unknown.
Yeah, I can sense my body relax just listening to you.
Yeah.
Because it's so rare, I feel, that we really allow spaciousness for our emotions to be felt. And like, there are also in our everyday life so many people that want to be helpful and give us advice. And so, like, the pieces that you mentioned about how precious it is to just have a person being present with you and allowing space for emotions, but also allowing silence, already is such a gift and is such a healing, transformative experience for many people, me included. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You
then
said
also
something.
what I have realized. Yeah.
Yeah. Go on, Eve.
Just one thing that I have realized is that remaining in my own center and like telling myself that my presence already is the medicine and the gift also allows me to then reconnect to the curiosity. Because if you don't have the pressure to do something right or to find a solution to your client's problem, which is not your job as a coach anyway, it just is such a relief because you don't have to know. And then you can easily tap into the curious mindset of just like, oh, I wonder what would happen if try out this, or like if I try that question, and just see like what they play back to you. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the topic that you brought on the message that emotions send to us. So and just trusting that, and knowing that emotions are just messengers. I look at them as they're your allies. They normally are signaling something that you need to pay attention to. So, I mean, that skill of just listening to emotions is not a very common one. And especially, I struggled with it for a long time as a man, and all the stereotypes that I had associated with the whole issue of emotions. So, it's been a journey that has been quite something, because I know I get triggered by some of my children who, when they behave a certain way, but I never really sat down to ask myself, why does this child in particular trigger my anger? And the more you dig in, you realize there's certain beliefs that you build over time about what is right, or what should be acceptable behavior. And again, where has it come from? You go a little bit further, you realize it's the same behaviors that were reinforced and rewarded when you grew up and have become your reality. And so, what are you doing even as a parent? You again projecting your reality, and your emotions are basically saying, hey, something here is happening that you need to pay attention to. And therefore, then listening to those emotions and sitting with them and really trying to understand what it is that they're trying to communicate to you is a real great gift that coaching provides for you.
Yeah, I mean, the topic of emotions, I could like talk about it for hours, because also in my work as somatic therapist, like I really learned how, yeah, we're not really taught to just feel our emotions. So usually our emotions just want to be experienced and allowed space for, without necessarily going into the mind's narrative. So there can be an emotion of anger, and because we're not aware of it, or because we're not connecting to the sense, like felt sense, but more like feeling uncomfortable with it, we already start creating this narrative, and we become very narrow-minded in like, this is my reality and this is the truth and this is what I want to defend. And so like we're shutting ourselves down from actually being able to receive any other kind of reality.
Yeah.
And so by allowing ourselves to feel the emotion without like already jumping into interpretations, that way we can also get to a point where the emotion is felt through, and we get to a more centered and calm and peaceful state of our nervous system, where we are actually able to engage with another again and hear their part of the story and hear their perception of reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting what you share also. And I can imagine with kids, it's especially like, I think it's the training of life.
Yeah.
Really looking forward
It
to have
is.
kids one day, but yeah.
Yeah. It is. It is.
Okay. Maybe like one last question that I love to ask people on our podcast lately, which is, with your work and with what you do in the world, what world are you trying to create, or what world are you contributing to?
It's a beautiful one. It's a beautiful one. I I put it this way, that uh, in my own small way, I hope I can create a world where people are seen, heard, and valued. Um, it's so important that everybody's voice is appreciated and everybody feels that they're valued, they're valid, and they exist. And every time we honor another's reality, we give that person a sense of they are worth it. They are people that need to be noticed, and it takes that, and that's the kind of world I am part of. I look at it. I do a lot of workplace work, so I always tell people I'm busy creating humane workplaces, workplaces where the leaders can learn to treat people as human beings, and to place priority on the dignity of people. And the minute when people feel seen, heard, and valued, then productivity becomes automatic. Uh, but the minute people are feeling they're just one other instrument, then they realize it's not worth putting everything. So they say people don't know how much you care. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I think that's the world, a caring world where we listen to each other, where we honor each other's realities and remembering that we could be wrong and that somebody else just simply might be holding a diverse opinion from ours. It doesn't mean that they're worse, they're less than you. But it's just that respect, that honor of each other. That's my world. That's the world I hope to see more of in my own small contributions.
I love that. Thank you so much, Thomas,
My pleasure.
for
My
being
pleasure.
here and having
This
a
has been
beautiful
such a
conversation.
beautiful. Yeah, I've loved the conversation. I feel very relaxed. It's been one of those things when you're talking about a topic that you really enjoy. I mean, it's just like I'm having coffee with you and we're just out somewhere, a nice park, and just sharing our notes. And just really hoping that somewhere in the community, someone in the community, somewhere out there, we'll just benefit one or the other end. And also learn to create that kind of safe space for people to engage with their realities. Thank you for this opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.